You were listening to episode 152 of the Game Deflators podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators podcast, we like to talk about games we've recently picked up, games we're currently playing, and with no inflation deflation, find out who challenges the Z Fighters on this week's episode of the Game Deflators Z.
Good stuff, man. So for anybody that's questioning why we have no inflation deflation challenge, we actually have this week Kyle Hebert, who is the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter, and a whole bunch of other roles. We'll get into that in a bit with the interview that we have here. But as always, let's get started with our current pickups and are currently playing. Ryan, I actually have stuff this week. Surprisingly
Good. Hey. It's about time, John. Gosh, I mean, who has a podcast talking about stuff we've recently played and picked up when generally we don't pick up and play things?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with you. So I finally got my copy of Monster Boy, the limited edition from
cool.
Limited Run. So I got two copies of that, one to sell, one to keep. I got a new Commander deck. So I think it's like the Qualtrics something, Quantum Qualtrics, I think, from Strixhaven. So I picked that up. That was pretty cool. I got my copy of Ys 8 because they did a re-release, which was amazing.
That's the one that you were telling me about, right?
Yep. So I got that, finally came in. And then I actually went to do some garage sales, interestingly enough. And I picked up several games out there. Nothing super crazy, just a few $10 or $12 titles for the 360 and PS2. And I think I paid on average like $2 a piece. So I got that. And then I have like the guitar or Rock Band setup, like the guitar and drums and all that, but the drums is missing like all the critical things like wiring and whatnot. So I'm gonna actually piecemeal sell that online just to make some money on that. It was like $10, dude. Like, who turns down for $10 the microphone, the guitar, the drum like setup piece for Rock Band and all that? Like, it was a no-brainer for me to actually pick that up. So I got that as well. So I think all in all I spent like $21 and came out with a crap ton of stuff, which wasn't bad at all. Cool. And yeah, so that's what I got. As far as what I am currently playing, I actually didn't play any video games this week, like at all. So instead, I caught up on Squid Game, which was
that was
phenomenal.
So good.
Yeah, it was so good. So caught up on Squid Game, watched that, and I started watching Handmaid's Tale, and now I've been like stuck. Like,
I gave up on Handmaid's Tale a long time ago. Bree really likes it. I can also say Midnight Mass, quite good.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. It's by the people that did Haunting of Hill House.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that it's close to the quality of the first season, much better than the second season.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's
totally different thing, but it really good. Great acting too.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I haven't gotten to watch that one, but I've heard about it, and it is on my list on Netflix at least. I just haven't seen it, so we will see. But I'm
man. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. So Squid Game was, like I said, that was phenomenal. I love the plot twist in that show when all is said and done. And in a sense, it is currently playing, right? I get to watch people play some red light, green light.
Think about how you would do better.
Yeah, exactly. Think about how I would survive. So I did get to play something at least. And Handmaid's Tale, I'm really enjoying so far. I think we're on episode 5, so it's kind of picking up a bit. It's good stuff.
Dude, there's like 5 seasons.
I know. Still good.
You're nowhere close. Like anything you're watching now doesn't even matter.
Oh, I'm sure, dude. Like I've already I've actually guessed a number of things that are going to happen. There's a lot of cliche components to that show. So like I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, and she's going to go to this person, and then this person. Oh, this person's going to be an I. Okay, that person's not. And like my wife's just looking at me like, really? Like, you're just calling out all the plot points.
Have you seen this already?
Like, right? No, but I'm enjoying it. How about yourself? Pickups?
So just real quick, while we're talking about stuff we've been watching, I've been watching the weirdest thing. I started watching Cheers.
Why?
Because I want to be where everybody knows my name, John. That's why.
I don't even get that joke, but I will assume it's from Cheers.
Yeah, it's a great show. I'm digging it. If you like old classic timing shows, it's a good one. So anyways, this week I picked up Metroid Dread, and I've been playing that. We'll talk about that in our first article. So I'll end with that and kind of use it as a transition. Just giving you guys a heads up.
But what you're not playing is Mario Odyssey.
No, definitely not. I'm gonna use that as a November game this year.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if you finish it.
So I had some other pickups this week. I've got like 5 Gundam models I got to put together. I just got a high grade Gundam Heavy Arms. They're like putting this stuff out at Target, so I'll just like randomly go into like a Target somewhere and just get something if they got it. That's something that I want.
So
Um,
my Target actually had what's it called? What is that dang show? Evangelion. They had the Evangelion card game,
I didn't know they
right?
had one.
I didn't know either, and it randomly was at my Target.
Unless
There was
it's
like
like
one.
a Vice Wars.
I got no idea. All I know is that they had it, and I was shocked.
Yeah,
Continue though.
I haven't heard of that one. So I got that. I got another set booster box for Innistrad, and I cracked that all open because John knew that I couldn't wait.
Did you get
But
Did you get another Meat Hook Massacre?
I did. I got a
Nice.
second.
They're going for like $40 now.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was talking about, like selling, and you were like, "Nah, just hang on to it." And I'm like, "Yeah,
No,
probably."
no, no. That one, I would say sell that one.
Okay, so if I gave you one to sell, would you sell it for me?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, we'll do that.
Just realize you're going to lose like 20% of the
Why?
value because card sale TCG, they take a percent of the sale in general, and then you got to ship it.
Yeah.
And
But
with
I
it
mean,
being
I'm just going to use that as like bankroll to buy other stuff that I want.
true, I mean, if you sold it locally, like put it on Facebook in one of the groups, somebody would buy it from you for like $35 real quick.
Okay, that's
So
an
just
option.
something to do. And you could likely meet at one of his shops and then take that cash and then flip it right off the bat.
Well, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so I was going to get those commander decks like we were talking about with the like credit card reward money I have coming in, but I'm really wanting to crack open a box of Innistrad. So,
Dude, it's so cool, and like I need to get some more clear sleeves. There's so many like double-sided cards, which I love, and I
mhm.
really, oh, dude, I want to buy a bunch of these. They got these like helper cards that you put in your deck in the place as like just a placeholder.
Mhm.
I just like that little shit.
Nice. So I also, I didn't add this to this week in terms of Magic, but I also picked up some of the Eclipse sleeves, which I guess is made by, God, what's that company's name? Ultra Pro. So I think it's a subset of Ultra Pro sleeves, but basically it's like a matte cover, like that matte style I like on the top of the card. So it's not that super glossy look.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Eclipse sleeves are actually not bad in this few sets I bought. Pretty excited about them.
Nice.
So
I also had the ultimate pickup. I got adult braces.
yeah.
It sucks so bad. I had all that shit when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and now I've got it again. So
I
if I
actually
sound weird, that's what I'm leaning on is the reason.
I actually cannot get the braces that you have now because I had that crown that was put in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because they did a root canal as well. So, the only way for me to get like braces you have, they would have to take out my premolars, which means if that crown ever cracks down the road or anything happens with that, then I literally don't have 2 molars on the right side of my mouth.
That would suck.
It would suck. So, I need to get the, what is it, Invisalign or Clear Correct, I think is the other thing that's called.
Yeah, I'll be done by next Christmas. So look forward to a year of this.
Oh,
Anyways,
you've only got them for a year?
yeah,
Oh, that's not bad.
yeah, I'll be done by next Christmas. I'll be good. So
Metroid Dread.
Metroid Dread. I dig a good Metroidvania. We've talked about that. I loved Hollow Knight. I've played, numerous other ones. I dig it. And this one is pretty fun. Uh it's classic Metroid, you start off with nothing and then you slowly get everything. This one's all about those robots that you see in all the advertising, the Emmys. And the way they work is kind of like a nemesis type enemy, but they're only enclosed to certain transitional areas. And the way the map's broken up, you have several maps that you take like a load transportation like an elevator or a train car or something in between those maps. Within those maps, you'll find your normal, Metroid map layout, and only certain sections in those maps are the areas where those robots are. Uh, they are invincible to you. You cannot kill them. If they try to attack you, though, you get two opportunities to like defend yourself and like counter them, and it stuns them for a moment, and then you can just get away. And if you fail, they kill you. So usually they kill you. The timing's a little bit tough, but it's not impossible by any means. Like if you were a better player than me, you probably would never die to them. Uh Shortly in, spoiler, I guess, if you don't want to know anything about it. But you do get like a cloaking ability that allows you to hide from them better. It makes getting around them pretty easy for the most part. So the biggest conflict that I have about this is like your robot guide dude that you meet in not like the map room, but these like terminal rooms every so often. Like every time he talks to you, he's like, Samus, these guys will totally like beat the shit out of you. Like, don't fight them, run or hide, but don't engage. Like every time. And it's like, you get the ability to kill them, but only one at a time. So you can kill one, and then you got to wait until you do another thing, and then eventually you get the ability to kill another one. And they're like, oh, there's 6 of them. You know, they have different colors as you go through, but they're not like individually identified in any way. The way you kill one is exactly the way that you kill the next one, and it gets less and less stressful. Like the first time, you have so much room to do what you need to do. And then it seems like they're making that window go down, and I'm sure there's still room to change and do more going through. I've done like 3 of them so far, but it's just really kind of not that engaging. It's kind of like how they made Lady Dimitrescu and that part of like the castle and stuff in Resident Evil 8 Village, like the main part of the promotional campaign,
Mm-hmm.
but it really was only like a portion of it, and everything else around it is, basic Metroid. Um I can't say that uh you know much negative about it. Like it controls great, the power-ups are cool, the enemies are cool, like fighting those things is cool. They're just not they seem like they're going to be way more daunting, and then kind of quickly you're kind of just like eh. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's stressful when you're like booking it trying to get away, but once you kind of get more movement options, getting away and stuff, they really just, unless they're going to keep presenting them in larger ways of obstacles, we'll see how that goes. Um I've definitely like missed some areas and like gone way further and then had to backtrack and find things, and that's been fun. I'm trying to like go through the map now as I'm playing to like, you know, make sure all the maps highlighted just to trigger that part of my brain that does that. But like, I've gone into the same room like 3 times now and died after doing a bunch of that and not saving. So every time I'm going all the way through, jumping in all the corners like an idiot
Yeah.
and just not saving before I die. So I don't know. I dig it. I like it. I don't know if it's like 9 out of 10, maybe like an 8 out of 10 so far. We'll
Oh
see if
man,
I beat it.
shots fired right there, man. For
I mean,
sure.
it looks super great. It's just like so far I'm just not like, I don't know. I'm looking for a little bit more out of it, I guess. I
So
guess,
like
but I don't think there's anything wrong with being an 8 out of 10. I think that's still tremendous.
so like, 4K, maybe increased frames per second. Is that kind of what you're wanting more of?
Yeah. And maybe on a different platform
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah, maybe. So this week's articles, probably our best segue yet, Ryan. This week's articles, one of them is Nintendo Switch's exclusive Metroid Dread is already being emulated on the PC. This is Liam Doolin at Nintendo Life. And before we get into this, our other articles that we're going to have are Apple making profits in video games and it being more than Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo combined. And also, PlayStation boss wants a change he's willing to not make. So there's some interesting stuff here. But as we promised, Nintendo Life, first one here. So, in general, yes, Metroid Dread is already being emulated on various PCs and such at 4K with increased frames per second. And to tell you the truth, man, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised as to how quickly this thing has been emulated, like pretty much at release. And what I'm thinking is that, people already looking to emulate this game, there's obviously a craving for 4K on a Switch and increased frames per second. And as much as those Nintendo fanboys out there think, hey, Nintendo doesn't need to do this, they have a great console as is, would it honestly hurt and would they be against a 4K console coming out?
Well, so first off, also not surprised. I just assume that this always happens. Like I just assume that every game that comes out is on PC and 4K the next day. Like I think there's people out there that get a kick out of that challenge and make it happen and don't have to pay for video games because they're smarter than me. So, it definitely happens. As far as all that other stuff you just said, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was like articles or something this week
Or like last
or
week,
last week where they were talking about
developers having a
more
4K
yeah,
console.
like 11 developers confirmed, and Zynga was the one that was like, yeah, we totally got one, and they were named in the article, and then they were like, no, we don't.
Yeah,
So
right.
I mean, the
They don't anymore. Nintendo was like, whoop, take that
well,
back
and
from.
then it was like the Nintendo corporate Twitter account, not like the more customer facing one, but the more like businessy facing one
Yeah.
that came out and was like, no, shareholders, we're not tanking this middle gen, kind of like we did the DS Lite, and then we came out with the DSi like a year later.
Yeah. So let's not, put it past Nintendo to say the OLED or OLED version is.
Yeah, it's getting such good reviews too. People love it. People really like it. I was like,
I like the white on it, and I like the scratch resistant screen that they put on there too.
just the
Well,
more
not
depth
screen,
of
but
color. Like
protector.
I'm playing Metroid Dread and it looks really good, and I'm like, oh, but if it was like more crispy, vivid, like that would be
So
sweet.
I didn't put it for this week, but I could have sworn I saw an article earlier that said that the dock, like somebody broke apart the dock for the OLED version, and they said that it's 4K capable on the OLED version based on what's in it. So
I mean, if it has an HDMI port, doesn't that mean it's 4K capable? Like it
no.
all runs through the same cords.
Well, no, because I mean a PlayStation 3 has a HDMI and it's not 4K capable. It's about
Yeah,
what's in
because
it.
of what's in it. Like there's nothing in the dock that does the stuff. Like the dock is just a box,
I don't know.
right?
Somebody, I don't know. Some article I saw said that the dock was broken down to where.
I mean, they know more than I do for sure. If they're opening up electronics, they know more than I do.
Yeah, I know. Like,
If it's beyond changing the batteries, I'm out.
I mean, I can do some minor stuff, but yeah, I'm not
I
sitting
still need to
back.
switch those Switch Joy-Con thumbsticks that I bought.
Oh yeah. Let's see if you actually get those done correctly.
Right.
I'm gonna laugh if
I've
you
got
break them.
4 tries.
You got no, really more like one try because if you break the controller initially.
No, I've got 4 Joy-Cons to try it on.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah,
So I could
but
screw up twice.
kind of. Yeah, you can screw up twice. Yeah. So I would suggest do your
It's
left
super easy.
Joy-Con, do your left Joy-Con, then do your right, and then start with another left as your third one. So if you really screwed up, at least the bare minimum, you'll have 2 practice Joy-Cons.
All right.
That's the way to do it, right?
So,
But yeah, anything else in this? I mean, it's not shocking. It really isn't. But uh, honestly, if we could get some Metroid on a Switch in 4K, nice and crispy, I would be super excited. Like I want to play this one. I have not played it yet. at all.
I
Like
mean,
no
I think we're
demos, no
definitely
nothing.
going to see a 4K Switch. The one thing that I'm wondering is when Nintendo does come out with a 4K Switch, are they charging $10 a game to upres like they're doing for the PS5? Like, because basically, like, people are paying that extra $10 for like the PS5 Leap so that they can get like the graphical bump. I know that this is not going to be the same graphical bump by any stretch. It will be bare minimum 4K without like, you know, all the other bells and whistles they're doing,
Hmm.
like ray tracing and stuff. Like they're definitely not going to have that on a 4K Switch, but
Yeah.
like I mean, it's going to have like such a stronger battery and stuff too. Like they're really going to have to like up the price point. I don't think you're going to be able to manufacture it for that kind of price.
Yeah. Well, who knows, man? Hopefully, if I can get myself a PC GPU running 4K, and I'm not saying I'm going to, but pretty sure at the end of this, they gave like a link on how to play it in 4K. So, just gonna say if you want to click our article and for educational purposes understand how this is all done, you're more than welcome to click the link via our page where we have all of the nice information on what the podcast episode is about on Podbean, Podcast Addict, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. You can also find that link that we are talking about here on thegamedeflators.com. And of course, you can find this episode on our social media platforms at Facebook at The Game Deflators, on Instagram at Game Deflators or at The Game Deflators, and Twitter at Game Deflators. So lots of places you can find this link. So we got a couple more articles here before we get into our interview. The next one is Apple made more profits in video games than Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo combined. This is Alex Gatewood at No Techie. And I don't think we've ever had an article by these guys. But I'll just be upfront that this revenue line is from 2019. But it says that in 2019, Apple made $8.5 billion in revenue, essentially from the 30% that they take from developers for being on their app store. And the reason I popped this article up this week is because there's all the stuff that had happened with Epic, and I guess is continuing to happen with Epic and that whole court battle. And it's just interesting to see, like, from 2 years ago. I mean, imagine last year what they were making. So
Yeah.
with COVID and everything else. So pre-COVID, they made 8.5 billion just off of 30%.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised though if they lost like $1 billion from not having Fortnite on there alone.
Yeah, that's true. Uh, but dude, that's insane. That is an insane amount of money for a company that does not actually make their own games. Like, can you imagine
Thank
if Apple?
God though.
But can you imagine if they were making their own
No,
games?
no. Apple would make terrible, shiny white games with no edges on them, and they'd be
Dude,
awful. Every game would be like rolling a marble down a hallway of wood.
with 8.5 billion in revenue, they could buy like multiple Bethesdas.
Dude, I don't want Apple anywhere near a game. There's a reason that they've never like done that. Like they hardly support like games on their like actual like computer hardware to a great extent. I don't know if that's still true. I don't know if that's like an old thing.
Yeah, I
But
don't know. I
that's
don't
that's
own a
always been
Mac.
my understanding of Apple as
Yeah.
not a PC player myself either. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it sucks um that they get to make all that money for that. And I mean the court agreed. So they're not gonna be able to force that mandate anymore. So that definitely is gonna go down. I mean, I don't know how many companies want to just keep it the way it is, and maybe Apple just lowers their bar
Well,
if you want to participate and use their service still, or because I can't imagine all these companies. I mean, it's got to be worth it at some point to set up your own point of sale so that you can start making that money.
yeah, but all these companies don't necessarily have the ability to do so. I mean, think
Yeah,
about some of those little like
there's some portion of people that aren't going to want to know how to, or won't think it'll be worth their time if they can get a better cut from Apple instead.
yeah, like if at the end of the day, the amount of time and energy that you're putting in to make your own point of sale system for your game, and this is me speaking on the side of not being a developer, obviously, but the amount of time that it would take to get that all in place and have to deal with bugs and all this other stuff that's tied to it, is it just easier to have Apple manage it?
Well, the
Probably.
other way, I'm pretty sure I've seen it before, is pretty sure I've seen somebody promoting before, like Hearthstone money, like before an expansion launch, that you can buy like a set of money from Amazon as like an affiliate link for like a streamer or something to,
Hmm.
you get like a better deal and your creator gets, a cut of whatever that, sales he helps drive there. But like you can go on Amazon.com and buy Nintendo gift cards. Like, is that better or cheaper than just going on to the Switch and just buying something with money? Like, I don't know if like they do deals where you get like three $10 cards for 25 bucks or something instead, but those are always like top selling items on there.
Yeah.
So, like if you can start routing your money through other venues to get better deals into people's hands and get that money into, the actual companies doing the work and take it the hell away from Apple, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I know you kind of like initially shunned it, but if Apple did start making their own games and had their own studios and such, would they see a decent chunk of profit? I mean, obviously 8.5 billion is hundreds upon thousands of gaming applications that are on their app store. Like there's tons on there. So obviously they're taking a cut of every single sale that happens.
But I mean, like
Is it even worth it to make their own games?
the
Probably
fact that
not.
they made the iPhone, which is the platform that all of these games sprouted from, like, and they never even made their own game to go on it. Like, they didn't even build in, like, oh, let's put our own version of Snake on here. Like they never even tried that after all this time. So that just shows like how little. I mean, on the iPad, they had like that shooter game where you could like move it was like Asteroid kind of or something.
I don't even know. Dude, I haven't owned an iPhone for 13 years.
No, like iPod. Like
I haven't
old
really.
iPod had like the games
Oh,
on
that
it.
one. Okay, yeah, dude, I remember playing mini golf on that bad boy.
Yeah, so it's like beyond that, like I don't know, it'd be like Nintendo made the Wii. They made the motion control thing happen. Like if they never made like Nintendo is just like, I don't know, we made motion control, but somebody else figure out what to put on it.
Yeah,
It would be that approach.
yeah. Well, either way, this is, like I said, 2019 revenue. It'll be interesting to see 2020 as well as 2021 revenue. And then even 2022, once all of this court
That'll
stuff
be the
is
more
hopefully
interesting.
cleared up. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see for sure. But as far as games and their availability and, you know, people buying them and whatnot, the PlayStation boss, I know you're laughing, the PlayStation boss wants to make a change, but he's also not willing to make it. So this is Ethan Gack at
This is a
Kotaku.
longer article.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, this is a much
Let
longer
me
article.
let me summarize here, John.
All right, go ahead.
So, in this interview, uh, Big Boss, oh
Jim
gosh,
Ryan.
Jim Ryan,
Yeah.
he's talking about how successful and great, those main driving games that bring people to PlayStation, your Ghost of Tsushima's, your Last of Us, those types of titles, and how great it would be for more people to have access to those things. Like, even though gaming now has a larger revenue share than any other media, the amount of people with access to that media is much smaller. Like 100 million people haven't played God of War, you know? So how do you bridge that gap? Well, the reason that he is not willing to make the change, as the article implies, is because the way you can access this is through a $500 PS5 if you can manage it, to not buy it from a scalper. Like that's your ticket in. You got to do that to come to the rodeo. So, you know, they talk about how over time, trying to build these up would be through like other platforms like streaming and stuff like that, which, PlayStation Now is a thing. It's not a super successful thing.
Well, that's on
And
Sony.
Yeah, the availability for the hardware just isn't there, and I mean, a lot of that isn't Sony's fault. They would be making and selling more PS5s if they could. But, you know, it's one thing to talk about, you know, tripling your access for users, but not willing to make the accommodations that really make, like, the reason music and movies are accessible is because you don't need $500 system to do it. I mean, most people have over a $500 system to do those things because you do it mostly through your phone or TV. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, folks, Ryan stole all of my notes in opening that up. I thank you for that, Ryan. Let me see if I can continue the conversation here with you. So he does talk about, obviously the caliber of movies and music, and the games, in a sense, should be enjoyed by millions as well in that same manner, right? And to your point, you don't have to spend $500 for entry point into going to see a movie, and you don't have to spend that much money for entry point into going to listen to music, because you've got things like Spotify and you have Netflix and all these other aspects that are out there and ways to jump on. And so I really do think that, Sony is, this is kind of contradictory, right? He definitely is like, hey, I think that our games are art and people, like millions of people, should enjoy it, but he's not going out and making, and they're not really, as a company, making this widely available. And the way to do that is through PlayStation Now, or it is through putting Sony studios on PC and making that widely available. Doesn't sound like they're anywhere close to doing that, though. And it kind of bugs me in a sense. Like, why even have this conversation? Why do this keynote at a conference if you're going to make statements about how you want your games and such to be widely available, but then you're not making them widely available? Like, is this like kind of a pitch to say, hey, we want to do this, but we can't because we only have it on a console. So you should buy that console. Like, what the hell is he even trying to do here?
yeah, I mean, I guess as the leader, you want to express lofty goals, but,
But if you have no intention of meeting those goals, why would you even make a statement on it?
I,
Like, it
I
baffles
don't know.
me.
You'd have to ask him.
Maybe, you know what? We need to get Jim Ryan on here after Kyle. We get Jim Ryan, and he's
Stepping
going to be
up.
on the pod. Yeah, well, it's not a step up. It's not a step up. Kyle's done a.
Maybe he can introduce us. Maybe Kyle knows him.
Yeah, maybe Kyle is Jim Ryan.
So
We'll have to ask him.
there was a quote that, or a tweet that was quoted in here that I want to read off, that I think a lot of players out there probably feel this way too. I want shorter games with worse graphics made by people who are paid more to work less, and I'm not kidding.
So
This was
Nintendo.
Fanbyte Media's Jordan Mallory tweeted this in June 2020. I mean, the PlayStation brand now, like we've talked about this in the past too, but like these big, huge, shiny releases that are like the pinnacle of why you play on PlayStation, those are fantastic. But like PlayStation has had so many games that aren't just the best. He's always talking about the best games. Nobody remembers the okay games. Lots of people remember lots of games that are okay. There's nothing wrong with a good okay game that's a $40 release and it lasts like 15 to 20 hours. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nobody's got a problem with that. Like, there's definitely room for both things out there. And I think PlayStation, if they want to get more accessibility, they want to get more people playing games, there's a way to do it there too. Things that are more accessible, things that like not everybody's going to go play Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the first time and like it if you're new to games, because
Yeah.
it's so much to ask of you for your first game to do like 80 hours of being a Viking. It's a lot of Vikinging to do.
A lot of Viking. I do find it interesting that that quote is pretty much Nintendo's model. Shorter games, worse graphics, and made by people who get paid more and work less. I mean, isn't that Nintendo?
I don't know. You never hear about crunch out at Nintendo, but I mean, the Japanese work mentality is already just super hard anyways.
Yeah. And to think you want to go there. Although I'm sure Korea is now the new Japan for you guys over that household. The way everything's going. Well, I don't have much else on this one. It's just, like I said, very contradictory article. It'll be interesting to see if Sony continues to put games on the PC as they've done with several titles so far on the PC. Um, but without further ado, I guess we should jump into our interview with Kyle Hebert. So, for all of our friends out there on the internet, we have Kyle Hebert with us today for an interview. Kyle is a voice actor of over 20 years. He is known for voicing some of the iconic roles, including Ryu of Street Fighter, the adult Gohan, the narrator of Dragon Ball Z, Kiba and Naruto, and of course, who can forget the pub patron of Ni no Kuni.
Hey,
Kyle,
I worked hard on that one.
yeah, that was a tough one, I'm sure. Kyle, I'm pretty sure we've left off hundreds of roles that you have been a part of, but can you give us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I'm a 52-year-old with a 15-year-old fanboy trapped inside. Just all about pop culture, geek culture, tech, all sorts of fun little toys. I love smartphones. I love social media. I love video games, even though I'm terrible at them. And I button mash all the time. I love radio. I love media, television, podcasting. I used to do a podcast. Now I'm back into it, doing a solo podcast now. And I'm just fully entrenched in the world in which we live. And I enjoy it as a fan of those things and as someone working in the industry. So it's cool to see both sides of things.
And your podcast, what's the name of that one that you're currently doing?
The show I'm doing is a callback to my old radio show on Radio Disney called the Intergalactic Boombox. And the Intergalactic Boombox, while it sounds like it would be a music podcast, has nothing to do with music. It's just geek news with just me, myself, a solo podcast where I basically do the news and reviews about, pop culture things. But the original angle I threw in there is because I'm a voice actor, I can throw in different voices. I don't do the copyright, characters that I'm known for. I've created original ones that I also voice, but I edit them in such a way so it sounds like I'm having a conversation, and there's a little bit of overlap and all that stuff. So a lot of fun things like the Intergalactic Boombox. I pretend I'm in space on a spaceship. So I've got aliens on board that just sound like a couple of slacker stoner dudes. And I've got a conspiracy nut called Kenspiracy. He calls in all the time and goes nuts. And I have a Karen, whose name is Karen, who calls in and complains, of course. And just whatever comes off the top of my head when I see things are going crazy. So I've been having fun with that. We're on episode 22 this week. I've been posting them once a week and record during the week and edit and sticking up there, and also forwarding and a big pundit for Podcasting 2.0, which is this movement to where we're talking about new features on podcasts, new app developers throwing up apps with experimental things on there like images and chapters and the ability to stream micropayments of little bits of Bitcoin called Satoshis all in app to do this value for value thing. It's kind of an answer to Patreon or a monthly subscription where you get to say, okay, well, I think you gave me value. I find this show or this point you made particularly interesting or entertaining. Boop, I'm going to send you X amount. And again, micropayments, 2,000 Satoshis is like next to nothing, a quarter maybe or something. So it's just the idea. The concept gets really exciting to do all that. So
that
Nice.
all sounds amazing. I definitely want to check out your podcast, and I definitely want to see how we get to 2.0.
Yes, man, that would be cool if I can talk some podcasters into signing up for this stuff, because it's free and it's a new way to interact with your audience and all sorts of stuff. It's really exciting. So everyone listening or watching this podcast right now, hopefully you'll see and be able to ingest this particular podcast in new and exciting ways.
Yeah, we'll have to chat on that one. Actually, I was at a conference recently. They were talking about token currencies and such for podcasts and other types of just other types of things in general, not even just podcasts. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool to kind of hear you talk about it a week after I just heard some similar stuff.
It's going in there. The seeds are being planted. Yes.
Yeah, they definitely are, man. So let's kick this off. We have the quick question, and we always have to ask this question. Can you tell us a story behind how DJ Squeege, or just Squeege, of Radio Disney ended up in the world of anime and video games?
Well, starting off as a kid in the 70s, watching cartoons like Looney Tunes and everything, and learning about Mel Blanc, the genius that voiced all those characters, he really brought them to life. And that's what kind of set me on course from being a child. Also fascinated by theater of the mind, like hearing people on the radio introducing records. I'd listen to records on the turntable because CDs and the internet didn't exist yet, or, maybe cassettes, but I was listening on turntable, and I was taking a cassette recorder and playing DJ and doing silly voices and doing mock commercials and things like that. And it's like, I want to do this when I grow up. So what I ended up doing was getting a broadcast degree from the University of North Texas, right outside of Dallas in Denton, Texas, and got an internship at a radio network. And that all turned into an on-air job, voicing on various different music formats. I got the Squeege name back when I joined a rock format called Z-Rock. Played hard rock, heavy metal. So I'm introducing Metallica and Slayer, and I'm doing all this wacky, crazy voices like Robin Williams or Jim Carrey, and I'm presenting just a nutty show with sound effects and music beds and all sorts of stuff. And I came up with that concept of the Intergalactic Boombox, which is now resurrected as the basis for the podcast. But I actually kind of segued over into voiceover, working as an on-air DJ with Radio Disney. And some station coworkers were taking a tour of Funimation because at the time, Dragon Ball Z was the number one thing on Cartoon Network and the big it thing. So they were trying to close a deal on some promotions to give away merch. And they learned, because they were in Dallas. They still are to this day. And I was in Dallas at the time as well. This whole network thing that I was working in radio, and heard about auditions, went in, tried out for Dragon Ball Z. I got to read for Gohan, adult version of Gohan, who started in high school in the next story arc. And within 2 weeks of auditioning, I got called in to do bit part voices, because you've got the lip sync thing going on. We got to make sure whoever you bring in that's never done it before can do it. And I guess I fooled them enough, having a drummer background. I played drums in high school and all that. I got a sense of rhythm and timing. So people with a musical background usually get the rhythm based thing. Beep, beep, beep. And on the fourth imaginary beep, that's where you start talking, and you're watching and hoping that everything plays out the way you want it to on the lip sync.
Yeah.
And start with bit part voices. A couple months later, suddenly I'm voicing the adult son of the main character, Goku. So I'm like, what? It's crazy. A couple months after that, I try out for the narrator, because their narrator left for whatever reason. I forget why, but they needed a narrator. They knew that I'd have wide range of voices in me. And it's like, oh my gosh. So suddenly I'm doing this monster truck tractor pull guy. Coming this Sunday, next time on Dragon Ball Z. And suddenly I'm doing that. And then I go from attending conventions to being a guest at them. Like, what? I start going around the country, around the world, seeing new places. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I'm having the time of my life, because it's everything I wanted it to be and more. Getting to work in a world that I'm already a fan of, and then having that crossover into something that I can do and hopefully one day eventually make a living at. And I am now, but then starting out in the 2000s and whatnot is just it's exciting, exhilarating, and also like, oh God, what do I do now?
A podcast.
Yeah, where do you go? I mean, you're freelance, so you don't know where the next paycheck's coming from. And it's like, so when people say, hey, what's your favorite role? I'll just say the next one, because, you're hired and essentially fired once they don't need you anymore. So, well, I'll hopefully get more auditions, and hopefully they'll hire me on more stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you must have been asked that question a million times. And that was actually what we were kind of wondering too. Like, what is like a favorite role of yours? And I mean, since we talk video games here mostly, like, do you have a specific video game role that you do that's like
Sure.
the tops?
Sure. I love being Ryu on Street Fighter. I know a lot of people call him Ryu, but when I got hired and tried out and they gave me the role, they said, at Capcom, they said, okay, it's pronounced Ryu. I'm like, okay, you tell me it's pronounced any way you want. I'm here for you guys. So yeah, getting to voice an iconic character in an iconic franchise. And it led to this bucket list thing I never thought I would get to be a part of, a Disney movie, because Wreck-It Ralph, a movie set in the video game world with cameos from actual, current voiced characters. So Roger Craig Smith is Sonic, and Ruben Langdon is Ken, and me is Ryu. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So here I am geeking out, living in Burbank, California, where 5 minutes away is the Disney Animation Building where they recorded the voiceovers. And like, I'm geeking out. The director's geeking out because, oh my God, the voice of Ryu's here. Like, no, oh my God, I'm in Disney. So it's just unreal getting to be a part of that without having to be a big movie star and a celeb, because that's what happens with those big budget animated movies. They think that kids go watch this movie because of a celebrity. And it's like, well, but they throw us a bone, the additional voices get to come in. So that was just breathtaking to get to see the credits. And it's like, oh, I wasn't just additional voices. It's like Ryu, Kyle Hebert, like, oh my God, this is so cool.
That's
Yeah,
so
it's pretty
awesome.
How does that work? I guess with the inclusion into Super Smash Bros. Have you had to do anything with Nintendo, or they just kind of pulled pre-recorded audio and just kind of plugged into the game? How has that worked?
They reached out to have a whole brand new recording session. It was just a handful of lines, and I went in and was done in no time. And the Nintendo people were freaking out that I was there. Like, oh my God, this is crazy. It ended up being like an awesome birthday present. They released that DLC for Smash Brothers with Ryu on my birthday that year. And, I only recorded it like a month or two in advance. And normally with games, it could take up to a year or several years. But for that, it was a pretty quick turnaround.
That's cool.
That was pretty wild. Again, I'm a terrible gamer. I'm horrible at Smash Brothers, but I was super, super psyched that they brought in Ryu. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense.
And then I guess
the franchise, yeah.
Tail question of this too before I jump into the next one we had, but I guess you do a lot of work obviously with the Dragon Ball Z games as well.
Oh yeah.
What's the experience there, and is there any crazy difference doing Dragon Ball Z recordings for video game versus the show itself?
Sure. A lot of times with the video game, most of the stuff is recorded to match the timing of the Japanese audio more so than the visual element, because the stuff is being animated still. But once in a while, there'll be something to where, maybe some cut scenes are already kind of roughly finished, and we try our best to match the lip flap to that. So that's where it's similar. But anime is totally locked in. You can't change the animation or any of that. So you're locked into a specific rhythm of the mouth flaps and how that goes out. Anime pays ridiculously little compared to video games, and video games are easier to do, but pay way more. But another similarity with Dragon Ball Z and any fighting game or RPG with a lot of screaming, it'll just rip your throat out. We'll do the conversational, the small stuff first, and then get to the fighting sounds, and that could last from 10, 15 minutes, maybe less, to hours of nothing but fight reactions, and you're sitting there depending on things like, where's my Chinese cough syrup? I need my arsenal of lozenges and hot tea, and just to make sure that your screaming doesn't totally kill your voice to where you're down for the day, and God forbid you have another session afterwards because you're totally shot.
Yeah.
So the next question I had here is, what is a character that you have always wanted to voice, and why? So one that you've never voiced before, but you've always wanted to.
I think it'd be cool, golly, to be anyone in the Batman universe. But
Okay.
I say that with a disclaimer that I want it to happen, but I don't, because Kevin Conroy, man, that bar is so high. I don't want to be compared, It's like, you're good, but and it's like, oh man, yeah. So something like that, something in the comic book world, which I've done a little bit. I've done with Marvel's Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I got to be Super Skrull and a couple of bit part voices on that, and Marvel Pinball. It was Iron Man and Odin, but yeah, some superhero thing or Star Wars. My God, Star Wars changed my life in 1977. That's for sure. So, God, I could die happy. Just make me a stormtrooper who gets killed, and you hear me just die. Like, "Ah!" Hey, that's me. That's me. Like, I could die happy in that world.
Nice. Ryan, you got the next one there.
Yeah. So, I know you said that you aren't great at games. I'm not known for being the great player on our podcast either.
He's also known for not completing games on our podcast.
Yeah,
hey, I'm right there with you, man.
Yes, there's nothing better than the next thing you're going to play, even
Yes,
if you
yes.
haven't finished the last one.
You start, and I remember before the digital download thing was a thing, you'd have a row of games still in shrink wrap.
Oh yeah.
And then you'd start, and then you're like, ooh, shiny, and then you want the next best thing.
Exactly.
I never can keep up with the kids who just beat the game in less than 24 hours, and then they're on to the next thing. It's like, but I just started up. Okay.
What's like your go-to game or like franchise?
I'm a big button masher daily player of Zombie Outbreak on Call of Duty. I love me some zombies. I was all about Left 4 Dead back in the day, Left 4 Dead 2. And I know Back 4 Blood is out, but I tried that beta and was just like, meh.
Not the same?
It's not the same. And I have it. I have the new one, Back 4 Blood, the final version. I haven't played it yet, but I'm kind of entrenched in the new season of Call of Duty. I picked up the new Metroid, and immediately it gets stuck somewhere. I get stuck, and I'm like, well, crap, I don't know what to do. Now I gotta... But now at least we have YouTube playthroughs. So at least I have some sort of thing, because back in the 90s or whatever, you'd be like, go to GameFAQs.com and see if you can,
Dude, I still go to GameFAQs.
Right. I know. I've been running through those tunnels too. I'm not really sure where my next goal is either.
Yeah. It's like, I just got this. I just got WarioWare. I keep on buying these new games because it's a tax write-off. I stream. So it's like, well, it's for my business. I'm actually in Wario. So, yeah, I play for a little bit, play on the stream. And typically with the titles, I'm not really playing them outside of the stream, except for Call of Duty mostly.
What time do you usually stream?
I stream so far Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific on my channel, Gohan with Your Own Bad Self.
I like that.
I was going to ask, I was about to ask about WarioWare and that you're in that, obviously. What is it like playing some of these games and then obviously hearing your voice as these characters?
I still nerd out. I think it's so cool to play something that's interactive. Especially if you're a playable character. I mean, I tend to be in things that are in cutscenes. Like, you can't play as Dr. Krygor or Dribble, but you still see them. So it's kind of like unlocking your own work. It's like, I got to play this game long enough to where I hear myself and do all that. But, on the other side, I'm a gamer, so I would probably play these titles anyway. Especially any sort of party game. And so when I play a game online during my stream and I say like, it's all right. And then I get people in the chat or whatever going, it's probably better if you play with friends. Like, isn't that always the case?
It is. So other than a podcast, and assuming no NDAs are in place, what are you currently working on, and where and when can we expect to hear your voice in an upcoming game or animated feature?
Ooh, golly. I can't talk about anything until it's out there. But I basically work on games and shows and live action dubs on Netflix. And it sucks because we all want to just shout from the highest mountains what we're on. I mean, the latest thing to come out, I think, with my voice on it is the final story arc in the Seven Deadly Sins, where I'm Escanor. So people can watch that and hear me on there. Golly, I don't know. I don't know what has a release date soon. It's usually the problem I have is forgetting I've done something, and then suddenly on Twitter people are tagging me going, "Great job on so and so." Like, oh, that came out.
Yeah,
And
I'd imagine because you're not really sure when it's coming versus when you're there.
Yeah, not unless I really, really double down, take notes in my phone when I'm recording, and assuming they don't give me some code name like you're playing Super Envelope Umbrella Cucumber. Like, that's not the real name. But if they do give me the real name, then I can look on GameStop and see a release date. Like, okay, roughly I can know when it's coming out. But there's things I work on that I had no idea I was on. Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't remember recording anything set in the Old West, but okay, I'll take it. I'm in the credits.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a Netflix component though. So English dubs on those Netflix. How does that differ from the other part? Because I mean, we've all seen English dubs of like Japanese films and stuff, live action films, and the lips
Yeah.
just don't match at all. So
No.
how does that process work?
Well, there's a more concerted effort to make things fit, at least the beginning and the ending, if not the internal flaps. It's so difficult with human speech because the subtleties of the way the mouth moves and everything. And something in one language may end in a consonant, but in another language ends in a vowel. So that's why there's this disconnect. And usually there's a script variance. You have to compensate for that difference. So if you watch something, say you put on Squid Game, which I'm not in, but you put on Squid Game, you put on the English track, but you put on subtitles too, those rarely match up.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is purely technical. They're not just saying, I'm going to change it because I can. It's like, well, no, the guy only took 6 flaps to say a whole paragraph. You know what I mean? And sometimes vice versa is the case. So that's always a really, really thin thing to skate across because, yeah, usually when you're watching something that live action that is dubbed into English from another language, you can tell. And, it's not the actor's fault. It's not the director's fault. It's not the writer's fault. It's just kind of the way it, you do the best you can, hope for the best. And
exactly.
Yeah. Us as a culture, it throws you off. If it's off technically, even by a second, it's like, this is not lip synced right. But in Japan, for example, they dub their own things and it rarely syncs up, but they're more performance oriented. So they make allowances for that. But we definitely make a more clearer thing where with dubbing, instead of having a whole cast there, we have to do it one person at a time because of those technical constraints.
I mean, I live my life with subtitles on now, like for everything. Sure. I just always have subtitles on. And I don't know when I changed to it, but it's always strange when they're not on now. I'm like, wait, did I understand what they said?
That's a habit that I got into because of my wife. And it's like, why do you have subtitles on? It's like, well, in case I miss something that they don't enunciate clearly, then I can kind of just go back. It's like, oh, that's what they're saying. Like,
yeah, it just doesn't work for comedy. You got to turn it off for comedy. Kills the punchline.
And once in a while, the line will be a spoiler.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that joke would have been so much funny had I not seen it coming because I read the subtitle too fast. Or like, oh.
So yeah, I think we're making excuses for the fact that we're just older now. We just can't hear as well.
Mode. Hey.
So like, what's next for you? Like professionally or personally, like, do you have any like projects or things that you're working on? Like, I mean, you got a big secret that you can't talk about, but you're excited for, or are you building a deck outside of your house? Like, what's going on?
I'm working on boop, and then boop, and then suddenly a huge roll is boop, and then yeah, I'm always excited to work because I'm still passionate about what I get to do for a living, which doesn't feel like work, but I've put in so much time and mental, you put blood, sweat, and tears, and your mental capacity just gets blown all the time. It's like you grow up with parents that are supportive, or even ones that aren't supportive, and they just look at you like you're crazy. It's like, why don't you just get a 9-to-5 job? It's like, I couldn't imagine myself doing that. I I want to be creative. I want to be in the entertainment industry. I want to be an artist of some kind, contributing entertainment, because that's what I feel is the language I speak best. So I accept all the baggage that comes with that, all the frustration and not getting hired and doubting yourself. And suddenly, when you least expect it, you get an email. Back in the day, you'd get a call, but nowadays you get an email or a text message saying, "Hey, we need you on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Like, yes, I'm there. Yay, work. If you can plan your week ahead out and say, okay, it's going to be okay. I got stuff coming. That's great. And if not, you use that time to better yourself. Hopefully you're managing your funds, and maybe you could put some into training in a class to catch up on the latest VO trends, or just making sure that you stay on top of your game.
Nice. And so this last question before we close out, we ask this for all of our guests that we have. Do you have any words of advice for someone that's interested in going into your career path?
Absolutely. D. Bradley Baker is a very, very established cartoon voice actor, does a ton of creature noises. He's basically all the clones in Star Wars right now. And he has a website called iwantobeavoiceactor.com. And it always sounds like a joke, but it's legit. iwantobeavoiceactor.com. And what it does is break down what you need to do, which, TLDR is get acting training first. It's not about doing impressions. You've got to be an actor first and foremost. The guys who do the wacky voices, they'll hire the guys to do the wacky voices. But you learn to hone yourself with your own signature sound, your own speaking voice first and foremost. And you're able to get to a point where you can lift the words off the page and make something come alive, even if it's something dull, like, oh, I'm man A on a commercial. Well, the truth is, commercials are the most popular form and most plentiful form of voiceover, and you stand to make a lot of money if it's say a union job and it airs during the Olympics or Super Bowl. Every time it airs, you're going to get a piece of that pie in terms of residuals. So you may record for $400, which is like, okay, that's cool. That sounds like a lot of money. And then suddenly a few months later, you get a residual check for $3,000. It's like, and residuals are like Christmas. You never know when it's coming or how much it's going to be for. So there's that. But I know that voice actors make it look easy. Like we just go up to a mic and start talking. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, you got to have some raw talent. And if you're curious about it, I encourage everyone, even if you don't know you have the talent, just try it, because, otherwise you're going to regret and wonder, what if I took this path? Because you may go down an acting path and discover that you're more interested in audio production or directing or adaptation. You're going to walk away with something positive, even if it doesn't end in the way that you thought it would.
Definitely good words of advice.
Yeah, that's
appreciate
great.
that. Yeah. Well, that's all the questions we have for you on this episode. We definitely appreciate you coming on. It's been fun, and we hope you enjoyed it too.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Anything to help inspire the next generation of voice actors, especially now in the pandemic days where everyone's upgraded their home recording setups to broadcast quality. And, basically what I'm doing most of the time is recording from my walk-in closet. It is doable. You don't have to drop 10 grand on equipment. But I'm going to keep doing what I can. And I'm so grateful for the supportive voice acting community, and first and foremost, the fans that make jobs like mine possible.
Well, I mean, Ryan and I could speak for him on this. We grew up listening to you over the years and have always admired your work. And
thank you.
We're excited to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to your next work too.
Awesome sauce. Well, sure. I'll tweet it from the highest mountains on @KyleAbear on Twitter.
Sounds good. We appreciate it. Well, this has been episode 152 to Game Flavors Podcast. We've been joined by Kyle Abear. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.